Hi, I'm Jenny from Beyond the Beanstalk. Today we're going to hear the story of the Spaceship Tree, the universe reversed. It was night time, and up in the Spaceship Tree, Chris, Vinny, Ivy and Cara were taking turns looking through the telescope. There was a section of the tree where a branch had been cut off long ago, and there was a clear view of part of the sky. The children aimed the telescope, hoping to pick out the planet Jupiter amongst the backdrop of stars. Eggins, Vinny's therapy dog, had flopped down on the floor and gone to sleep. Below them, all of their parents chatted and laughed as they prepared a barbecue for dinner. "Can you see Jupiter, Chris?" asked Vinny. Eggins stirred at the sound of his voice. "Not yet," said Chris, still looking. "Let me have a go," said Cara. "Oh, the stars look so nice," said Ivy. "I found it," said Cara. The children took turns looking through the telescope. "I can see the red spot," said Vinny. "Mrs. Roberts said the red spot is a storm," said Ivy. "She said it's there all the time." Mrs. Roberts was the children's teacher. "I'm glad it's on Jupiter then. I wouldn't want a storm here all the time," said Vinny. "Can you see any moons?" asked Chris. "Jupiter has some moons." "Not yet," said Cara. "We might have to put another lens in." "Dinner time!" called a voice from below. "Yay!" shouted Vinny. The children climbed down the folding wooden staircase. The stairs could be wound by a handle and folded up into the platform that held the treehouse. Tonight, the children had left them unfolded so they could go up quickly again after dinner. While they were eating, they pointed at the sky and talked about what else they might see through the telescope. They didn't notice Ben, Chris and Vinny's older brother, and his friend Rowena from across the road, quietly creeping up the stairs into the Spaceship Tree. After dinner, the children and Eggins climbed back up the stairs and went into the treehouse. "It's my turn to look in the telescope now," said Ivy. She peered into it, then looked at the others, frowning. "Something's wrong," she said. "The stars are gone." "What?" said Vinny. "Gone where?" "Let me have a look," said Chris. He looked into the telescope, then looked back at the others. "It's true," he said. "The stars are gone." The children looked at each other. They each took turns looking through the telescope. No stars. "What are we going to do?" asked Ivy. At that moment, the treehouse door opened, and in came Ben and Rowena. They looked at the solemn faces of the other four. "What's up?" asked Ben. Rowena stood next to him. She seemed to be trying not to smile. "The stars are gone, and we don't know why," said Vinny. "What are we going to do, Ben?" "The first thing we need to do is not panic," said Ben. "Everyone come over to the table. We need to talk about this." They all walked over to the table in the middle of the treehouse. Chris, Vinny, Ivy and Cara stopped and stared. There was a strange object on the table. It looked like a little dome with a red glowing button on the side of it. The button had the word press on it in fancy letters. "Where did that come from?" asked Cara. "What is it?" asked Ivy. "Wow," said Ben. "I've heard of these, but I've never seen one. That's a celestial illumination concentrator," he said in a serious voice. "A what?" asked Chris. "What does it do?" "They're very, very rare and very powerful," said Ben. "They pop up on Earth sometimes. They suck the light out of stars." Chris, Vinny, Ivy and Cara looked at Ben with admiring eyes. He was so smart. Rowena stood with her eyes squeezed tightly closed. She looked like she was biting her lip. The children thought she must be very nervous. "What does that button do?" said Vinny, reaching out for the red button. "Vinny, stop!" shouted all the others at the same time. Too late. Vinny had pressed the button. Suddenly, the treehouse was lit with starlight. Stars that before dinner had been in the sky were now glowing on the walls inside the Spaceship Tree. Its domed shape now looked like the night sky, filled with stars. "Vinny!" shouted Ben. "You've reversed the universe! Instead of being outside, now the stars are inside!" Ivy, Cara, Chris and Vinny stood staring at the walls of the treehouse. As scary as it was very pretty having the stars inside with them. "I can see the Southern Cross," said Vinny. He was kind of proud of himself for pressing the button. "What do we do now?" asked Chris. "How do we fix it?" "Well," said Ben, "the only thing we can do is make it as bright as we can in here. We need to turn on as many lights as possible and hope that we can drown out the light from the stars." The children began rushing around the treehouse, turning on all of the fairy lights. Kara turned on the flashlight on her phone. No one noticed Rowena sneaking out the door. She was carrying something. "Is this enough light?" shouted Vinny. "It could be just enough," said Ben. "Turn off all the fairy lights and we'll check." They turned off the fairy lights and Kara turned off the flashlight on her phone. They looked around. The walls of the treehouse were normal again. "The celestial illumination concentrator! It's gone!" shouted Ivy. They looked at the table. The place where the celestial illumination concentrator had been was empty. "We did it," said Chris. "Are the stars back in the sky now?" They ran to the telescope and took turns to look. Sure enough, the stars were back where they should be. "Oh, thanks for your help, Ben," said Vinny. "Yeah, Ben, thanks," said Kara. The others thanked him too. Ben smiled. He was met at the top of the folding stairs by Rowena. She handed Ben the celestial illumination concentrator and then held up the telescope lens cap and smiled. They went down the stairs and into the yard. They stood under the tree and listened as Chris, Vinny, Ivy and Kara talked excitedly about their starry adventure. "What have you two been up to?" asked Ben's mum suspiciously. "Just hanging out in the treehouse," said Ben. Said his mum, still looking suspicious. She looked up at the old tree. Its leaves looked silvery in the starlight.